Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So this is a parable that I'm sure we've all heard many times before. It's favoured in Sunday schools. It's a great one for the kids, and actually often summarised down into be nice and do the nice thing, which is not necessarily wrong, but God doesn't just want us to be nice people who do nice things. He actually calls us to be set apart and to be people of love. Jesus says in John 13:34, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." Actually, this is a parable about love and how our love for others should set us apart. Now, I want to take you back to the beginning when the expert in the law was asking the questions. And Jesus asked him, well, what's written in the law? What do you know? And he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength, and love your neighbour as yourself. And actually, the order of these feels quite important because it's only by having the correct upward relationship with God, looking up to him, that we can begin to look around at our neighbours and love them as intended. Once you allow God to fill you with his love, once you receive it, he'll love others through you in ways you never imagined or could have come to yourself. It'll be the patient, kind, selfless love of 1 Corinthians 13 instead of the surface level plastic stuff of the world. Now, this is a story about a road trip, and we did a lot of car journeys as a family growing up, and I'm going to be honest, I was not great. It was cramped with 3 of us in the back. I was the littlest, so I was in the middle, of course. And I would get backache, and it was so boring, just being in the same spot. And Dad is one of those people that he wants to spend minimum time on the road. You leave, you get there, you don't stop in between. And I had a bad habit of saying, I really need the loo, right after we passed the last service station for the next who knows how long. Well, now I drive myself, I actually quite enjoy stopping off. I think it's quite nice. You get to test out all the service stations, and then when I arrive, I'm not immediately asking where the nearest loo is. But anyway, Jesus was a very interrupted man. Actually, even when he was grieving John in Matthew 14:13, it says, when Jesus heard what had happened, meaning John's death, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. This is when he then goes on to feed the 5,000 with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. Actually, even in grief, he allowed himself to be interrupted. But I'm not sure he would have described it as an interruption. How many times do we see people as an interruption? How many times is our immediate reaction to a delay or someone else impacting our plans frustration? I'm sure that's partly why the priest and Levite didn't stop on the road. They saw getting involved as something that would simply take too long. They would have then been unclean and had to go through all the rituals, etc. They might have thrown up a quick prayer, but stopping, that would mess with their plan for the day. But what if we saw it not as an interruption, but an opportunity? God knows where you need to be and when. So actually, we don't need to try and control every single second of our lives. We don't need to value time so much that we miss out on people to love. It's about not letting ourselves be so busy that we miss out on opportunities to interact with people around you. How do we do that? How do we start to see interruptions as opportunities to love? Well, looking back to the story, when the Samaritan sees the man, it says he took pity on him. And looking to Jesus, and there's going to be a run of Bible references as a warning. Matthew 14:14, when Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them. Matthew 20:34, Jesus had compassion on them and touched their eyes. Mark 8:2, I have compassion for these people. Matthew 9:36, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. Luke 7:13, when the Lord saw her, his heart went out to her. Mark 1:41, Jesus was indignant. John 11:33, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Jesus was a man of compassion. His immediate reaction to people hurting was compassion. He felt their pain, and then that drove him to action. I wonder if this is what the priest and Levite were missing on the road. He's very clear that they saw the man beaten, but I wonder if they only saw a problem that needed to be fixed. a problem that someone else could deal with. The Samaritan doesn't see a problem or a project. He has compassion on the man, and that is why he helps. Now, I've asked Emily, just to give you a break from my voice, to read a little bit out of the first chapter in this book, which is a great book, Love Does by Rob Goff, that just ties into this story. It's about when he was in high school, before he knew Jesus, and there was a youth leader named Randy that he knew, and he basically decided, I don't want to do high school, I'm going to go to a valley and try and get a job. And he turned up at Randy's and said, I'm going, and Randy just said, I'm with you, and then joined.
I only had a few bucks left after buying gas, and Randy offered to spring for dinner. As we walked back to our car after eating, I turned to Randy and said, you know, Randy, you've been great coming with me and everything, but it looks like I'm striking out. I think what I'll do is head back and finish up high school. After a short pause, Randy said again what had become a comfort to me throughout the trip. Man, whatever you decide, just know that either way I'm with you, Bob. Randy had been with me, and I could tell that he was with me in spirit as much as with his presence. He was committed to me, and he believed in me. I wasn't a project. I was his friend. I wondered if maybe all Christians operated this way. We didn't talk much as we left the Yosemite Valley, for much of the way home for that matter. A dream of mine had just checked into hospice, and Randy was sensitive enough to know that I needed some margin to think. We drove for 5 or 6 quiet hours. Every once in a while, Randy would check on me in his confident and upbeat voice. Hey, how are you doing, Bob? We walked up to the front door and he opened it. I walked in behind Randy, uninvited, but somehow I still felt welcome. On the floor, I noticed a stack of plates and some wrapping paper, a coffee maker, some glasses. On the couch, there was a microwave, half in a box. I didn't understand at first. Had Randy just had a birthday? Was it his girlfriend's? A microwave seemed like a weird way to celebrate someone's arrival into the world. I knew Randy wasn't moving because there wouldn't be wrapping paper. Then, from around the corner, the other half of this couple bounded out and threw her arms around Randy. Welcome home, honey. Then the nickel dropped. I felt both sick and choked up in an instant. I realised these were wedding presents on the floor. Randy and his girlfriend had just gotten married. When I knocked on Randy's door on that Sunday morning, Randy didn't just see a high school kid who had disrupted the beginning of his marriage. He saw a kid who was about to jump the tracks. Instead of spending the early days of his marriage with his bride, he spent it with me, sneaking into the back of a tent. Why? It was because Randy loved me. He saw the need and he did something about it. He didn't just say he was for me or with me, he was actually present with me. What I learned from Randy changed my view permanently about what it meant to have a friendship with Jesus. I learned that faith isn't about knowing all the right stuff or obeying a list of rules. It's something more costly because it involves being present and making a sacrifice. Perhaps that's why Jesus is sometimes called Emmanuel, God with us. I think that's what God had in mind, for Jesus to be present, to just be with us. It's also what he has in mind for us when it comes to other people.
I just find that so challenging, but also so powerful that actually time is such a valued thing today, and it means so much to people when you just give them time. So the greatest criticism the Pharisees had for Jesus was that he was a friend of sinners. He sat at their tables. They asked him to come in and he would sit there, he would talk with them, he would answer their questions. He loved and valued them. There must have been something in his character and his attitude that made them feel safe to invite him in. Something about him that welcomed them instead of judging them like everyone else. They didn't feel like a project or a problem to be fixed, but a person valued and loved. The priest and Levi didn't stop because they didn't value the beaten man above their own lives. Sure, they probably had places to be, but John 15:13 says, "Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." If we swap out that last word, friend, for neighbour, are you willing to lay down your life, to value someone else above your timetable and plan for the day? 1 John 3:16 says, "This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. Now, it's hopefully quite rare for us to come across a man being at the side of a dusty road as we walk with our donkey to Jericho. Actually, the Samaritan saw some immediate physical needs that needed to be dealt with right in that moment. And occasionally we're in a situation where there are some obvious physical needs. But actually a lot of the time, I think today, it's a need that is much more hidden. Things that we can't see and that can't be fixed quite as easy. So we look again to Jesus. Psalms 34:18 says the Lord is close to the brokenhearted. Or even if we go to the shortest verse in the Bible, which you have no excuse not to know, John 11:35, Jesus wept. Jesus knew that he could raise Lazarus from the dead. He was literally about to do it. But it wasn't about his ability to do the miracle. It was about his love for Mary and Martha. Their pain was his pain, and their grief was his grief. Actually, loving them meant co-living with them. Loving our neighbour means co-living with them. Weeping when they weep, and rejoicing when they rejoice. When you're in a really hard moment, it's not the people preaching what you should do that make the difference, but the people like Randy that climb down into the pit and just sit with you, weep with you. When someone does that, you're not a project, you're valued, you're loved. So are we willing to just stop and sit? Are we willing to sacrifice time? Because loving our neighbour is going to interrupt our life. It's going to be inconvenient. The Good Samaritan was on a journey too. I'm sure he had somewhere he needed to be. The fact that he had a donkey means he probably had many things with him. Maybe he was on the way to a birthday party with loads of gifts. Who knows? Either way, he has compassion on the man. He values the man's life above his own timetable. I do want to point out in verse 35, he leaves him in the care of the innkeeper and simply says, "When I return." And we don't know how long he was gone for. But it's important to note that he delegated to someone else when he had reached the limit of what he could give. It's easy to fall into the we need to do nice things, be nice people, and serve more trap of this story. Almost like that proves our love for our neighbour. And serving is so great, and we should do it. But what immediately follows this story to round out the chapter is Jesus going to the home of Martha and Mary. From verse 38, as Jesus and his disciples ran their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do the work by myself? Tell her to help me." "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered. It always makes me smile because I just think of him going, Hannah, Hannah, all the time. "Martha, Martha, you're worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what's better, and it will not be taken away from her." It's not that Martha was doing anything bad. She was making preparations. She was probably cleaning the house, sweeping the floors, getting the food ready, all great stuff. But it says she was distracted. Jesus was sat right there, and all she could think about was her to-do list. Is this a picture of when we get so busy doing the godly things that we miss out on doing life with God? Do we sometimes replace God with what we see as godly things? Loving our neighbour is not about behaviour modification and willing ourselves into serving more. It's sitting in God's presence, thinking on the cross, letting him transform you until his love overflows. Letting him transform your heart until you cannot resist loving others. Until we're people of compassion, being driven into action by love, not obligation. It's not on you. It's not about you and your efforts. It's about God being able to work through you. You won't be able to fix everything yourself. You won't be able to help everyone yourself. So you help where and when you can, but ultimately it's about your heart for them and leading them to Jesus, taking them to that safe place, the inn where they can recover. 1 Corinthians 13 is the great chapter on love that we tend to hear at weddings, and we're familiar with it. Love is patient, love is kind, it's not self-seeking, etc. But do you know about verse 1 to 3, where it says about doing things without love is meaningless? God doesn't want us to just do things. He wants us to love. Well then what is love? Really, the best definition is that God is love. and therefore doing anything without God is meaningless. No matter how good the thing, how godly the thing, if it lacks the presence of God, it lacks the power, and it lacks the purpose. If we're going to define loving our neighbours as actions driven by compassion and live that out, we have got to get our hands dirty. We've got to actually go out and act. And I don't know about you, I imagine a lot of you have experienced weeding in your time. But you tend to get your hands right in the soil and pull it out, and you make the flower bed in the garden look really nice. But I bet if you walked inside and sat on the nice clean white sofa, your mum wouldn't be very happy with you. At least mine wouldn't. In John 13, when Jesus washes the disciples' feet, Peter asks him to wash the whole of him, but Jesus tells him he's already clean. If you know Jesus as Lord of your life, you have a salvation that cannot be taken away. You are clean in a way that cannot be removed from you. But actually, as we walk in the world, we tend to pick up a little bit of dirt. Just like they were wearing sandals, it was hot and sweaty, they were on dusty roads, they would pick up dirt as they walked down the roads. And if you look, this chapter is fascinating to me as you look at it as a whole. Just before is sending out the 72, and it says about them shaking the dirt from their feet when they leave a place they're not welcomed. Actually, when we go out loving people and serving people, there is sometimes something that marks us, a little bit of dirt that we pick up. So it's again about coming back to Jesus and letting him wash that dirt again off you. Letting him wash your feet. Coming back into the secret place, sitting in the presence of God and just being overwhelmed by his love. That is the sustaining force that enables us to go out and continue to love our neighbour, to continue to be people of compassion. So yes, this is a call to love more boldly, more loudly, to let our love speak in actions as well as words, to embrace interruptions as opportunities. Yes, this is a call of where does your heart sit in terms of your neighbour, but mostly this is a call of where are you sitting, are you sitting with Jesus? Are you living life with him instead of just doing godly things to keep busy and to feel good about yourself? Because it's what you feel you should do in order to love your neighbour. Being very honest, sometimes the most loving thing you're going to be able to do is taking a nap. We're human, we're going to get tired and we're going to get cranky. We need to rest with Jesus, come back and sit at his feet, soak in his love for you, and let it refresh you. Interestingly, Jesus references the same passage of scripture in both Matthew 9:13 and Matthew 12:7. It says, I desire mercy, not sacrifice. And the original passage is Hosea 6, verse 6. The full verse being, for I desire mercy, not sacrifice, an acknowledgement of God rather than burnt offerings. Here he says, the one who had mercy on him. God is asking for mercy from us, not offerings, not sacrifices. And I will say, please read Hosea. It's all about God's love for us. It's a fascinating book and it often gets overlooked. And I don't think we'll ever be able to comprehend or understand his love. But both times Jesus mentions this verse, he talks about learning what it means, understanding it deeper. Because the only way we can love our neighbour deeper is by walking deeper into God's love. It's have you spent enough time sitting with him, truly trying to understand and receive that love that he has for you. Alternatively, a couple of weeks ago, they prompted us to read through the 24 hours that lead up to Jesus' death on the cross in John. How did he spend his last moments? How did he value others above time that he knew was running out? I urge you to spend some time this week reading through John 13 to 19. Do you know that he prayed for you? Read John 17. Reflect on his heart and prayer for you. Because God doesn't want us to just work harder. He wants us to live with him, to fully embrace his love for us so that we can love those around us. Are you being prompted to act out of a love that is an overflow from him rather than an effort and willpower from yourself because you want to be seen doing the right thing? Our love gets hands dirty. It's vulnerable, risky, and scary. The call on us to have love for the lost and for our neighbour is an overflow of the love we already experience from God. As long as we stay rooted in him and let our actions be an overflow of that love, as long as we keep returning to him, we can handle rejection and we can get our hands dirty loving others and then let Jesus wash them clean in the secret place. we get to go out, we get to love. And then we get to be filled up with that love again, and we get to go out and we get to love.